And
Right.
following that system, it changed everything. So I was able to stop the bleeding and then make it
Right.
rain.
I'd like to welcome to the show Jen Conkey. I'm so excited that you're here, Jen.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And before we jump in and just start getting into the yummy good stuff, well, this is yummy good stuff too, but who are you? What do you want to share with the audience as far as who you are, what you do, who you serve?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm an NLP master practitioner, a hypnotherapist, and a business strategist. And I know that's a mouthful, but
I love it.
I love to help people break down mental barriers because we all have that inner monologue inside of our brains that just says everything that we don't think we're able to accomplish. And I like to help people get rid of that inner monologue and sort of evict them because they're occupying rental space, but they're not really paying rent, you know? I love to recondition the mindset for people to have unparalleled success. And I do that by identifying their limiting beliefs, and then most of those beliefs have a chokehold on our ability to just really get things done. And in order to do that, we've got to step into a new identity, a more empowering, unstoppable identity. And that's like my special superpower. I
Mm,
love
I
doing it.
love that.
Yeah, so that's basically what I do, and I'm able to do that because I've been investing in real estate for over 20 years, and it gives me the cash flow in order to live, sustainably, so that I can go do things like impact other people and lift the
Mm,
vibration of the world.
I love it. You're speaking my language. I mean, lifting the vibration of the world, helping people to really get their energy aligned, right? With what really matters to them. Love it.
Yes.
It gives me goosebumps. And definitely one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show. I also want to share Jen and I met in person, and one of the things that I have really trusted in my journey of my evolution is when the energy feels really aligned, to follow that energy. And there was just something about Jen. And I didn't know. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this podcast and I want to, it wasn't
Right.
anything. There was no agenda. I think that's it. So no agenda around it. Just the energy is pulling me. And, someone could say, well, what do you mean? What does that look like? And all I can say is, I'm universe wants Jen and I to meet. So
Thousand percent.
so that's how we connected, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted
It's
to have
really
you.
It's really interesting that you say that. I felt the same thing, and I get that a lot where people say it just feels like a magnetic energy there. And when we met, we were sitting at the table, I was like, I want to get to know Laura a lot
Yeah,
more.
right.
Fascinating.
It's
Yes.
so it's so cool. And for anyone listening, it's these are those little things that even if you don't really like, even if you live in that left brain logical world, but you're curious about,
Mhm.
is there more, just little intuitive hits, I like to think of them, and play around with it. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You and I met and there wasn't, or what it was
Right.
like, and it falls flat. I don't know. But and what, in the introduction, Jen, that you do a lot of different things. So I'd love to ask you, speaking of energy, how do
Mhm.
you choose where and how you spend your energy in a typical day or a typical week?
I love that. A lot of people actually refer to me as a robot because I have what I call bookend rituals to manage my energy throughout the day. So for me, the day, it always starts in the same format. I wake up and the first thing that I'm doing is I'm really excited that I'm alive. I'm happy to be here. And I like to look on, do I remember any of my dreams or just spend time with myself? And I do this thing where I kind of wake up my joints.
Mm-hmm.
As we age and our body ages, we sort of need to wake it up,
Right.
send it love, send it energy of, you know what, you're amazing, you're right where you need to be. And I like to ask myself the questions of who am I right now in this moment? What do I need today? Who do I need to show up as, or how do I
Mm.
need to show up? And I just energetically have this conversation with myself. And what I like to do is spend time in the morning just grounding
Yeah.
and getting in an attitude of gratitude, being really super focused and intentional on what I'm most grateful for and really feeling that. And
Mm.
then looking at what do I have to do today and what hats. I believe that we all wear many hats in different
Right,
roles, whether we're a mother, a spouse, a friend, a cousin, a sister, a
right.
boss, an entrepreneur, whatever a hat I have to put on that day. I might need to put on 4 to 5 different hats. And I like to look at the course of my day throughout that day. What hat am I going to need to be in? And do I need to do any proactive meditation to get my mind right and
Love
get
it.
myself into that state? And then I visualize myself do the whole day in each hat, transitioning each hat. So energetically, I'm already embracing the fact that I'm going to have to shift into, oh, the kids are coming home from MMA camp today, and I've got to be ready for hearing about their day and being
Right.
able to receive that. And then how do I shift back into business mode? What, before dinner. That's how I do it.
I
And if
love
it
it.
means that I've got to go do a meditation in the morning to visualize and then check my energy throughout the day, I might need to do breath work to get back in, do some visualization, do meditation in the middle of the day. It's just important. I check in at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, and the end of the day. And that's what keeps me going.
I'm laughing because in in my work with clients, there's a few habits that we talk about, and the first one is ready, which you just described how you get yourself ready in the morning, and that everyone's looks different, right? But in our language, what I say is what helps you feel fully you, right?
Mm.
Like aligned and in that space that you're really ready to go. And then you said check a couple times. So check throughout the day because you may be in that wonderful flow zone at the beginning, at the end of that morning setup, and something inevitably will happen. And you said check a couple times. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're like exactly. This is exactly what I talk to, and it sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but it's really powerful, right?
Yes. And sometimes it can be hard when you're in that moment, you're feeling a strong emotion. You don't for whatever reason, you might not feel like you want to get out of that emotion. You want to stay in it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's serving us to feel that emotion and having the wherewithal to realize, wait a minute, this is actually a low vibe energy or
Right.
emotion. And I really need to make the concerted effort to pop myself above the line. I think
Right.
that that's where the biggest challenge is sometimes.
Is there a challenge or what's it like to balance the real estate world that you're in with this more what I would say is just human development, personal development? What's it like to balance those two different areas?
I will tell you, it's not that easy. Yeah, but my secret hack is that I plan my day. I actually plan my week. So every Sunday, I will look at what is it that I need to accomplish this week that's in alignment with my monthly goals or my quarterly goals when it comes to real estate, my own personal development or
Right.
family things,
Right.
or even my mindset business. What are the things that I need to accomplish? Then on Sunday, I plan the whole week. And my secret is I do it in 90-minute blocks. So that way, I really believe in that law of inertia. When we're
Yeah.
in a particular flow on a particular topic, it's so important to stay there for a 90-minute block of time so that we can be as productive as possible. And then at the end of that 90 minutes, I force myself to go take a break, to go check in
Mhm.
and shift and put on the other hat.
You have
So,
really clear boundaries around each segment of your day.
absolutely,
I love that.
absolutely. That's my biggest secret.
You know, there was a point where I was doing a lot of consulting work in hospital settings and working with physicians and as well as some of the patients and families. And I always when I talk about that shift, right? Like going from one segment to another segment and I hear a lot. I don't know if you guys, I hear a lot. I'm busy. I don't have time. I don't have the time to do that. Things are back to back. And I always bring in that, when I was working with ICU physicians,
Mm,
walking from one room disaster scenario into another, who doesn't have time, right? But everyone has time to, what I had them do is pause at the threshold of the
mhm.
next door, close their eyes, and take at minimum 2 mindful breaths, which really doesn't take that long, right?
Oh,
But
it
it's just
doesn't.
a shift to let go of what was. And I use it because it's a more extreme example. Most people don't have
Yeah.
those extreme scenarios that they're going from one to another. But it's that shift, right? And even if it's a couple mindful breaths, everyone has time to do that.
1000%. I love that. In fact, if you think you don't have time, that means you need to do it even
Yeah,
more, right?
Right, right,
Right.
exactly.
And one
Um,
of one of my secrets I like to do with that, because I love the breath, and what I love to do is I like to think of visual anchors that remind me of what hat I need to be wearing in that moment.
oh,
And I will think of like when I know it's time for me to be mom, I have a visual when I close my eyes and I see myself reaching for the door and I'm opening the door and then I see my kid. And it's just really quick. And that's the breath that I will
that's
take in. So I think
such
that
a
that's a
great
great tip.
example. I love
Yeah.
that because everyone, anyone listening, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Just have some little visual that connects and I have sometimes if something is really challenging you, like maybe maybe you just got off a phone call and it was not the best phone call, those are the moments to bring in. I like to bring in a visualization of something that's very calming or
Yeah.
nurturing or loving for me. And it shifts the energy. And a lot of people have it's a mental challenge sometimes to realize that we actually have the power to shift our energy that quickly. And I like to think of when you wake up in the morning and you had a bad dream, your body feels it like it's real. If you've had a
Yes.
wonderful dream, your body feels it as if it's real. And it's the same thing with visualization.
It is. It is.
So, oh,
I,
lots
I
of
was
good
going to
stuff.
tell you, I feel like whenever we're in that beta brainwave, we're in survival mode when
Right.
we're trying to just rush through the day and get through things. And when I'm working with my folks, any of my one-on-one clients, I'm trying to teach them how to trigger themselves into an alpha brainwave state and
Right.
calm their nervous system down so they can actually focus on the task. And I actually have a system that I teach them, and I have a meditation or a hypnosis, if you will, that I
Hmm.
have out on YouTube for
Oh,
just the
cool.
general public
Oh,
that I can
cool.
share with you if
We'll
that would be.
definitely, yeah, we'll definitely put that in the link for everyone. I would love that. So I'd love to know, and I think listeners might be thinking, so how did you how did you get to this place, right? Like on your journey, what would you say are some of it could be high points, it could be low points, but part of what, when you reflect back and you think about, because it sounds like you practice gratitude a lot, right? And when you are grateful for where you are and you think back to your journey, what are the moments that you feel were pivotal for you at this
Yeah.
point in your life?
There's a, there are a few. So it's interesting that you asked that because I do that quite a bit.
Hmm.
And there are a couple of profound moments in my life. And the very first one was when I was 10. And I had this like Doritos changed my life type of moment. And I was 10 years old. It was 1984. So I'm aging myself a little bit, but that's okay because I'm proud of it. And I was walking home from school, and I had a bag of Doritos in my backpack that I hadn't eaten for lunch, and I thought I'll just eat them on the way home. And as I was pulling them out, I was walking by the high school, and there were teenagers that were on the lawn, and they were, smoking those funny cigarettes, and I knew that that meant they were going to have munchies, but they also might be funny and laughing. And all of a sudden, I hear them say, "Hey, little girl, how much for that bag of Doritos?" And I'm ready to open them, and I just looked at them and I said, $5. And he walked up and he handed me $5, and I just handed him the bag, and I was like, what in the heck just happened? I just paid
Wow.
$5 on a 60-cent bag of chips that I have a whole box of at home because mom just got them,
Mom, mom bottom.
Mom bought them. So there I am with my five
Really
bucks. And I'm
great
like,
profit margin on that.
it's a huge one. So of course I went home and I got the rest of the chips and I went back and tried to sell them each day. But what that instilled in me was a belief that I can create my own opportunities, and when opportunity comes to me, I need to take action. And when I do that, I can infuse my life with some cash. So I
Wow.
had this entrepreneurial spirit when I was 10. And then I lived with my dad after a while. So my mom went through some hard times. It was in the 80s during the recession and Reaganomics and all the things, right? And I ended up living with my dad. And my dad's school of thought was, hey, go get your college education, get yourself a house, do the whole,
Right.
American dream. And whatever you do, you have to get a job making at least six figures a year and climb the corporate wall, go be a
Right.
CEO of a major
Right.
company. And so I had that instilled in me. Plus, I had watched my mom struggle as a single mother. So I had both sides of the railroad
Right.
track. And there were times when on this side of the railroad track, I went hungry as a kid. And there were times where I only ate a head of broccoli for dinner. It was those
Wow.
bad times that made me realize I'm going to create opportunity for
Right.
myself. Then I lived with my dad and met all these people that's exactly what they did.
You did.
But they were
Wow.
living that you got to have a job. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s when my uncle gave me the example of entrepreneurship and that it wasn't as scary as everybody was telling me.
Right.
And it was a profound moment when I realized I can create my own opportunities. And my brother came over. It was literally, I was 28 years old, and he said, "Hey, come with me to the store. I'm gonna get a beer and cigarettes." And I was like, "Okay." But he tricked me, and we drove around a neighborhood for 6 hours, and he kept talking about flipping houses. And then when
Oh,
I
wow.
actually dove in and realized what that could do while I was still working full time,
Right.
I was creating another side hustle, another job. But if I could stick to it and be devoted and consistent, it could bring in a lot of cash. And so that's how it started for me. That was in
Wow.
2002.
Oh, that's
Started
cool.
flipping houses while working. And then it took me 12 years until I decided to retire from corporate America and do it,
Right. Well,
primarily in
and
real estate.
and I love that you say that because, there are a lot of people who are asking themselves right now, is there something different? Is there something more? And if they are in corporate America asking, at least I speak to a lot of people where they're thinking, I don't know if this is where I want to stay. But there is a little bit of a fear because what they're used to, they often say, well, there's this, it's the golden handcuffs, right? It's like I don't know if I can do this. And I love that in that example, you're really speaking to a very mindful transition, right? It wasn't like you quit your job and just said, let's see if this works. It was a very mindful evolution for you from, oh, let's see, oh, I can do this. Let's do this on the side. Meanwhile, you have the stability. And I think that's something that sometimes people feel like it's one or the other, right? And
Yes.
you just said 12 years, right? That it was that
Yes, 12 years.
transition. Yeah.
And it was the golden handcuffs that kept me there longer than I probably needed to. It wasn't until I realized, wait, I have enough cash flow that I could live and I don't need the job.
Wow.
It provides me a security, but
Right.
is that a delusional security where one day I got laid off in 2001, and that also was a pivotal moment where I realized, wait a minute, a job is not as secure as it seems.
No.
But then I went and got
Especially
another
these
job.
days.
Exactly. And so by the time I was ready in 2002, 2001 I got laid off. By 2002 my brother's talking about real estate, and then I started doing that, and I realized a belief shifted again to
Right.
it's not about a 9 to 5 that is, security, because it wasn't really secure. I got laid off when the 2001
Right.
recession and 9/11,
Right.
that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was always in the school of thought that I have to look for the opportunities, and if I see them, I can seize them and I can create opportunity for myself. 12 years went by of me doing it, banging my head on the wall on the
Right.
side and realizing one day, wait a minute, I actually don't have to work. I just have it as a security blanket. And if I
Right.
could leave that and go do this full time, what's possible? And once I started
Right.
asking more effective questions, my entire life changed, because it was no longer, oh my God, what happens if I make a mistake and I lose
Right.
money? Instead, my question,
Fear-based. Fear-based.
yep.
Right.
How can I make this happen? And what steps do I need to take to do it in a very, data-driven way
Right.
that's systematic and
Yeah.
sustainable and, more importantly, scalable? And the best way to do that is to not be at the 9 to 5. Now that I have
Right.
financial security and I
Right.
know I have enough cash flow coming in, but my first strategy was, let me just buy an apartment or a multifamily or a property for every bill I have. And that's all I did. I started with
Wow.
small, and I got a duplex, and that paid for my car payment. I got another duplex that paid for my house payment or
Right.
my cell phone payment. And I
Right.
just started doing that so that I had a property that paid for every bill. Then
Mhm.
I got property that would pay for vacations. And then I got property that would pay for, liabilities like a boat, jet ski,
Right.
RV, things like that.
All those liabilities that some people think are assets.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that in and of itself, the financial illiteracy that I had, and I had to learn that the hard way.
Right.
But
Right.
once I did, and I had a strategy and realizing, oh, I need to use my income to buy assets and then use the cash flow from my assets to pay for my debt. And
Right.
then I can actually use the income from my assets to pay for liabilities and all the toys that I want.
Right.
And
Right.
following that system, it changed everything. So I was able to stop the bleeding and then make it
Right.
rain.
Right.
It's life
I
changing.
love it. I love it. So for anyone who's listening who maybe is still in that 9 to 5, and it's a really profitable one, right? And it just makes everything easy. And maybe they have kids at home and they're asking that, what would you want to say to that person?
there's opportunity. There's opportunity for you to stay where you are, doing what you're doing in that safety bubble, but explore different ways, different income streams where you can get cash flowing assets. And as you stack those cash flowing assets up and you see that cash flow start to come in at a certain point, as you continue to invest in those cash flowing assets, you do that until it replaces your current income. That's the path that I took. And
Mhm.
once I hit that number, I realized I didn't have to work. And that's always nice when it's an option,
Right,
right?
right,
And
right.
then deciding to let that go, cut the cord, and do this full time, that's when things got really explosive. I went from, doing one property to two properties a year to, last year we did 1,500 doors. And it's because I
Wow.
can do it full time.
Right, right.
Don't underestimate. A lot of times we will underestimate what we can do in 5 years, but overestimate what we can do in one. And when you find a formula that is just
Mhm.
consistent, I plan in 90-day increments. I have a goal. Let me try and get into a building every 90 days.
Wow.
Whatever size that is what size it is. But I'm going to try to acquire a cash flowing asset every 90 days. And that's my strategy. And then when you do that, you have a plan and you start to see what's possible. And then you
Mhm.
have options. And there's nothing more empowering than having options.
Options are amazing. Options, opportunities, possibilities, open mind and seeing things that maybe you didn't see previously. Do you, as you look back now and you look back at some of those key moments in your life, how close are you right now to where you thought you would be?
Oh my gosh, I am so much further than where I thought I would be actually. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. If I look back at myself even just 10 years ago, and if I would have gone back and told my previous self, like let's just say my future self today goes back in
Right.
time and says, "Hey Jen, guess what? In 10 years you're going to own a motel, you're going to own mobile home parks, you're going to own RV parks, storage facilities, apartment buildings and all of these things." I would have been like, really? Because right now I only own duplexes, triplexes, and quads in single family homes. There's no way I'm gonna own all that other stuff. Are you crazy? And then I would have said to my past self, yes, but in order to get those things, you have to become the person that
Mhm.
knows how to hold on to them, protect them, and prosper long term. And that's why the journey is
Mm.
it's part of the
You're
requirement,
learning. Yeah, you're
right?
learning
Exactly.
along the way.
10 years
And
ago, I would
and
have never imagined this.
and what about the mindset work that you're doing? Is that something that was lingering in the back that you were curious about that you didn't have time, or did it pop up later?
So the full disclosure, full transparency, my childhood from 0 to 10 was it was a bit rough. My
Okay.
mother and my father divorced when I was 3, and I watched my single mom struggle. She was the promised land. She was raised in
Mm.
the baby boomer era of you just find a man and he's your Prince Charming and he's going to save you. And I watched that. In fact,
Wow.
nobody is here to save you. You have to save yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be there for yourself. And it instilled in me a lot of beliefs that I have to be there for me, and I
Right.
have to create my opportunities. And my mom, she was not able to thrive. She coped, and she coped using the bottle.
Okay.
And as a kid watching that, and then by the time she lost her job and I went to my dad's house, I wanted to figure out what is it that has that hold on people,
Right.
and why can't they escape it? And
Right.
so at a very young age, probably 19 years old, 20 years old, I started doing nothing but reading self-help books and
Wow.
personal development books because I couldn't figure out the puzzle that was my mom. I
Mm.
loved her. I knew she loved me,
Right.
but her
Right.
choices always leaned towards the things that helped her escape.
Right.
So
Right.
escapism fascinated me, and how do we cope and how do you thrive instead, and how
Right.
does that work? So I started looking at studying Tony Robbins, studying John Maxwell's leadership, and
Mhm.
just really dove into personal development on leadership and mindset work at the age of
Wow.
19 years old.
Wow.
So it's been 30 years of me going after this. And then I realized that NLP and the use of language and words and how we use our intention and the meanings we assign to things and the stories that we tell ourselves in our
Mm.
head, they all drive our actions. And it's like
Right.
what we believe then causes a thought, and that thought creates an emotion. Those emotions, they dictate what you're going to do. And what you do dictates your result. So your belief is absolutely directly correlated to what your results are. And
Yeah.
that fascinated me. And I wanted to learn, how do I help people take control, shift their state, their mentality, their thought, their view, and then start conditioning them into the identity that's actually going to serve them. So
Mm.
that's my superpower. That's what I really love to do. Real estate
Yeah.
pays the bills, but what I really love to do
Well,
is
I
help
think you're
people.
pretty good at the real estate too.
Yeah. Yes, I am. I am. Don't get me wrong. And the cool
Yeah.
part is anybody that comes into our academy, it has a lot of fear about doing real estate because they're afraid of, well, do I have the money to do this? Do
Right.
I even know how to do this? I mean, my God, there's a lot of math. There's a calculator. I have to
There's a
underwrite things and assess
yeah.
risk. And we get that a lot. And then the mindset piece that I've learned for the past 30 years is very helpful for those folks because they can pop themselves. Yeah, you're afraid, but you're going to be afraid and you're going to do it anyways. And when you do it anyways, you're going to get the repetition and that's going to build your confidence because now you're building
Yeah.
competence. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
You know, it's interesting. And I love that you said the competence piece with the confidence, because I feel like there are a lot of people who kind of have that view of, well, can you just help me get confident?
Mm.
And and as if we sit back and it just boop, pops in there. And it is, do it anyway, right? In a mindful way, but move forward, because in moving forward, you're building competence,
Yeah,
right? And you're building your confidence. But if you shelter yourself or you hide or run away from something, I think of it as you never have the opportunity to build the confidence in that particular area, right?
absolutely.
And it's really interesting. You and I talked before the show a little bit about just what the education that's available to children, to teenagers, to young adults, really to anyone, and how it's
Yeah.
really lacking in in the financial competence. And it's actually a very it's a scary area for a lot of people, not just the investing, but just the money in general. Oh, I have to have this job because otherwise I won't be able to survive. Or, there's a lot of fear around money. And I think I have two young adults, one a little bit older adult children, and they all three have said to me, "Why didn't you teach me more about money?" And, I listen, I reflect back, and I think, well, I guess I never really learned anything. So I just kind of figured it out. So I just kind of, just repeated that same pattern. But share a little bit about your passion and your hope around financial literacy, and including investing when it comes to younger people.
Absolutely. I'm very fired up about it, actually. So I'm glad you asked it. I feel that there's just a general where a lot of us as parents, we weren't taught financial literacy and we did have to go learn it by ourselves. And there's a way that there's three rules. There's three rules that I really wish someone would have taught me, and I'm trying to impart it on my kids. And I have a mission in our academy. We actually have teenagers in our academy where we're
Oh,
teaching
you
them
do?
how to go
Oh, that's
acquire a cash flow.
awesome.
So my goal is I want to create a course for kids that are in high school so they can learn that, you know what, if I can go acquire cash flowing assets, that money comes to me. And I want to just disrupt this whole American dream thing because quite honestly, it was made by the banks. The banks said they sat down one day in the 50s and they said, "Oh my God, we have an incredible opportunity here." It was actually JP Morgan met with,
Yeah.
God, what's the guy's name who
Oh,
created GM? um oh God, I can't think of his name right now, but he sat down with them and he said, listen, Henry Ford at the time was producing cars and he was
right.
doing it because he had economies of scale. He was selling Model Ts for 300 bucks. Then the guy who did GM, he was like, I don't have the economies of scale that Henry Ford has, and my cars they're more expensive. At the same time, Walter Chrysler was creating the Chrysler 70 was the first car that was ever going to go 70 miles an hour. JP Morgan, man, this dude was a very powerful guy. JP Morgan Jr. sat down with him and said, this is what you need to do. You need to be able to let them come to your lot and leave with the car without giving you any money. But they make you a monthly payment with interest until it's paid off. And that is when car financing came to play. The
Mm,
banking system did the same thing for home loans. They
right.
make money off the American dream, and marketing is marketing. So now, when you look at society showing you all the Louis Vuitton, the Versace, all the things that you want to buy, that consumer mentality keeps you
Yep.
paying them
Oh,
and
yeah.
keeping them wealthy.
Yeah, you just look at credit card interest rates and it's just my
Yes.
my my mind, like I don't know how. it feels very unfair for a very large part of the world. I mean, there are ways that you can use credit cards to your advantage, but you have to be very savvy about it because you can easily just get sucked into that system. And then,
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, can't really get out if you're too far in it, you know.
Exactly. And that's because compound interest is a magician. I
Yeah.
would literally write that down. Compound interest is a magician. It could either be working for you or against you. And it's working against you on every credit card you have. Now, if you get a credit card with zero interest and you're same as cash can make payments, that's different.
Yeah.
You want to go after debt that is good debt. It's the debt that pays you. For example, I have $150 million in debt on cash assets that actually pay us. That's different than having $150 million in debt on credit cards
Right.
that I'm paying out.
Big
There's
difference.
a
Yeah.
huge difference, but nobody explained that
No
to
one ever,
me.
no, no one ever teaches that. So I'm
Right.
sorry, I interrupted you. You were talking about your passion and you were talking about
Yeah.
young people and the key things, the key things that you want everyone to
That's
know.
literally, I want to disrupt that marketing
Yeah.
message. When you see all the flashy things, the Lambos, the McLarens, all those flashy things, and you want to go out and buy those and finance them, you are financing a debt that doesn't pay you and it's a liability. And the more
Yeah.
liabilities you stack up, the less your net worth it becomes. And then the ability to pay those off and increase your net worth, it diminishes over time because it's compounding interest.
Right.
So my passion is we're creating a course for kids where they can learn to go buy cash flowing assets. We have
Oh
it
my
for adults
God.
already, but I
That's
want to do it for
amazing.
children. Yeah,
I'm
and my
so
vision,
excited about that.
150 years from now, I want everybody to know what the Remote Multifamily Investing Academy is, whether and in high, let it be in high school so that they learn about cash flowing assets and how to go get them. And they live by the three rules. And these three rules are use your income to buy cash flowing assets, then use the cash flow from those assets to pay your bills. And also use the cash flow from those assets to pay for your liabilities. So go get a few apartment buildings and then go get the McLaren. Lease
Right,
it.
right,
Don't buy
right,
it. Lease it
right.
and
Lease
let
it.
the apartment pay for it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, that so there's
No.
just a huge shift that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I was thinking about what you were saying about the just the system, right? And wanting what I hear you saying is wanting to flip the system. And I love that. That's obviously one of the reasons why I have you on the show because there are a lot of systems that could use some flipping. And
Yes.
one of the things I was thinking about is the last time that I went to buy a car. They wouldn't actually answer the question as to how, like when I tried to get the bottom line as to how much, what I could negotiate, they actually wouldn't give me that bottom line. They were going to tell me how much my payments were going to be. And it
Right.
irritates the hell out of me
It's a
because
sales tactic.
I know what they're doing. And I'm thinking, I'm an educated person,
Mhm.
but they are relentless about it. They're like, oh, we can get you down. We can get it down to this. And I'm like, for how long?
Right.
Like you're not even telling me how many months or years, and just give me the bottom line. Let me figure out what I'm going to do. And they it was like I was asking them to do something that they had never even thought of before, or I like to think it was that, or they were just trying to pressure me, right? It was one or the other. But anyone who goes to buy a car, try to ask what that bottom line they're just going to go to
Hard.
what your payment plan is.
Right.
Like,
That's the first thing they're going to ask you is how much of a payment can you afford? And I will literally respond with that is actually irrelevant. Let me see the invoice for what you paid for this car and I'll pay you $500 above invoice. And if that's not okay, I leave or I'm going to lease
love
it.
that. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's just part of that system that you're talking about, right? And the other thing is, with a lot of credit cards, they will offer a 0% interest for a period of time. And that's another thing where I'm like, you can actually leverage that. Great if it's the right thing and you're on top of it. But man, does that suck people in because once that time is up, they're not actually just charging you from that point. They're going back to whenever your 0% started.
Yeah, then it's like 26% interest to
Yeah,
make up for the fact that you
yeah,
didn't, pay
yeah,
interest for the first year and
yeah,
now you're
yeah,
really locked in.
yeah.
Yes.
So, so this particular course that you're talking about for kids, what's the age? What would you say is the perfect age to really start learning this and practicing it?
So we had a 12-year-old who is in the academy and his sister's 14, and now they are 14 and 16, and they are able to watch that course, do the applications, and actually they're making phone calls to real estate brokers to find deals and get a pipeline of buildings to them so that they can go into the calculator and analyze them, determine what their cash flow would be, and they're actually making offers on apartment buildings. They've been in the program for 2 years now learning that. And
Amazing.
their dad, he's actually really big, had a 7-figure flipping company, flipping single family homes. And he is just encouraging them, right, to go learn this model. And
Wow.
when I have a couple of videos of them actually on the phone with real estate brokers talking to them, and their dad being right there coaching them through it, because you call a broker and they're like, you're a
Right,
child.
right, right, right.
So
They
it
might
does
not get the
require,
same response.
yeah, it requires parental support so
Right,
that they're
right,
there. But how amazing is it to have parent child getting a cash flowing asset together in their
right.
youth, so that when they're old enough, they know the process, they know the system, and now they have a means to go help them later on get cash
Amazing.
flowing assets. And
Yeah,
then they can really just find it whatever they're passionate about and figure out how
right,
to monetize that instead of being cuffed to a job.
right, right. Oh, I love it. I love it, love it. I wish I could gift my kids that. I wish I could go back in time and gift my kids that. I mean, it sounds like also you could have a parent go through the program at the same time as the kids. They're learning. So it's not like you have to have a parent who's already successful
No.
or knows that area. They can go through it and learn it together. I love that.
Absolutely. That's
Love it.
exactly what we do is we enroll plenty of parents and their kids just get to come and be a part of
Mm,
it. We do that all the
okay.
time.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So what I want to ask you big picture question. If you imagine that people have access to what you just described as far as the investing piece, and people have access to what you've talked about from the standpoint of mindset, right? Your other passionate work.
Yeah.
What do you think, at least right now, knowing that it could change, but what do you think is possible for humanity, for not just the United States, but the world? I know that's
It's
just a small
so big.
question, but
No, it's a big question and I love it. When you think about just the overall, imagine if people weren't worried about, oh my God, my alarm's going to go off at 5 a.m. I got to go to work. I got to do the grind. I got to do this. I got to, it's always, I've got to.
yes.
Imagine a world where you have the choice of, I get to. Imagine if you get to wake up and you already know that you have cash flow coming into you and you get to go do the things that you're most passionate about. That's just from the financial piece of it. Now we can do those projects where we give back. We can build parks. We can go into communities and uplift them. We can go to kids that are facing adverse situations and help them. Even families, single mothers. There's a way that now, because we are not distracted with trying to be on that rat race, be on the treadmill, be on the grind, we can actually be intentional, thoughtful, and give back to communities. That's my mission,
I
is
love
let me get financial
it.
independence for people, and then we turn around and give back and lift up communities on the financial side. On the mindset side, imagine a world where kids know when they are feeling a particular way, not to suppress it, not to hold it in, but to actually feel it, process it, release it back to the earth, be clear, be intentional, and imagine a world where they're able to balance. Okay, I recognize, I know I'm in beta brainwave right now. I'm in survival mode. My reptilian brain is taking over, and I've got to calm down my nervous system. And imagine if they had the skill to do that, which is why I'm so passionate and created all those hypnosis tracks to teach people. I have a 3-2-1 method, how to put yourself back into alpha brainwave so that you can calm your mind, get clear and focused, so that you're being intentional with your action versus running around in what I call whack-a-mole. Something pops up and you're reacting
Right.
instead
Right.
of getting into alpha brainwave and
Right.
being proactive.
Right.
If that world, which is very possible, could happen, and it's gonna happen over time,
Mm,
eventually it's a world where we're not operating from scarcity. We're operating from abundance. We're operating from a place of there's enough money and resources and everything in the world for every human being. And if we just gave back, now we're raising awareness. The planet is different.
right.
Our mindset is different. What we're able to accomplish is at a higher level. I feel like it's the absolute foundation of solving a lot of world problems.
Right.
Yeah.
I resonate with that so much. I think about the fear and the reaction, right? And I think about the power, you use the same words I use, the power of being proactive
Yeah.
and having the space. I think of it also as having the space to really um to really get in touch with what's in your heart, what's in your inner being, however you want to say it, heart, soul, whatever. Um and and what resides in there is something so beautiful and so powerful that I think that so much of the world in fear is disconnected from that. And one of my passions is anything that I can do to help anyone who wants to, right? We're all on a journey, we're all on different parts of the journey. But if it resonates, to really open up to how do I be more in touch with who I really am, because I know you're not the only person. I know there are so many people in the world with incredible gifts and visions of what could be. And I actually think we have this incredible opportunity to go from having a few people being the people making decisions to all of us get to tap into who we are and then what's possible.
Right? Imagine a group, a collective with
Yeah.
manifesting into, oh,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
powerful.
gives me goosebumps. Thank you.
Powerful.
Thank you for going for the big question.
Love it. Thank you.
For anyone who is listening, who maybe this, maybe they are a lot in that kind of reactive state. And maybe even scarcity or maybe even fear, right? Like, but kind of that reactive, kind of like, and what is one thing that you would say to them right now that they could do to just
Mhm.
maybe shift a little bit or like test it out from the mindset side?
Yeah, from mindset, I definitely want to give you the link to that
Yeah,
meditation that I've put together.
yeah,
It's a 3-2-1 method, and it takes you from the beta brainwave of survival to, going into full on alpha, calming your nervous system and refocusing and going into your inner world. We spend so much time in our outer world that it's when we turn to the inner world that things they feel different and you
yeah.
see things differently. So I would focus on, now I'll give that link out.
Okay, awesome.
Practice that practice of the
Mhm.
3-2-1 and get it into the point. I tell all my one-on-one clients to listen to it once a day for at least 30 days. And then what they notice is after that 30-day period, they're able to just kind of close their eyes and do the
Do
three,
it.
two, one method. And they've already anchored in their body what that feels like. So they get into that state faster than they had before. And now they're in control. So
Mm,
that's the first thing that I would share,
I love
is to
that.
do that, to have that practice at least once a day, to get into alpha and get very intentional.
Great. Thank you so much. That'll be really helpful because it's very simple, right? And I
Absolutely.
and I think the consistency is important in that, like you saying the 30 days. I think that's really important. I think even, just a couple times. So this is so funny because as much as I'm very intuitive, as much as I tap into the intangible part of life and me and other people and everything, I have had trouble with meditating.
Okay.
And I just in the last few months finally found the door that allowed that connected with me to do
Yeah.
that. And I just sharing this out loud because it's kind of like this 30-day commitment. For me, I made a commitment to myself to first I made the commitment of twice a day for 15 days. Then I made the commitment that I'm going to do it every twice a day, every day for the
I
rest of
love
my life. So I
I
just
love
say that
that.
like I made the 15 days first because that felt and it was only because I had tested out this particular approach where everything that I had done before felt like it was torture to me when I tried to
Mm,
meditate. Like I felt so restless around it. And I just want to share that out loud because if there's anyone going, I don't know if I can do something for 30 days, just
right.
you know what? Just give it a try and see what shifts because I didn't see the shifts until probably mm, maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks, I would
Okay.
say, where I started
And
really seeing the shifts.
I love that you mentioned about the people out there that don't think they can meditate, because I have the solution for you. In my meditation, what I'm known for is not only am I doing the hypnosis and using the words, but I actually incorporate sound, that sound frequency makes you
Mm,
go into alpha. So a
Nice.
sound incorporated with the words, you'll have a different experience when you listen to mine.
Love it.
I
Love
get
it.
that all the
Love it.
time. Yeah. Even Stacy can meditate and when she listens to mine but
Oh,
not with
nice.
others. Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
okay, excellent. And one more, maybe it's a big question. Um, what what are you most excited about for humanity in the next 10 years or so?
I personally feel, and I'm going to get really out there right now, but I feel like we're shifting from Pisces to Aquarius. And I will tell you, there's just a different energy,
Mhm.
and it's more free flowing. And what I'm seeing are our youth that's growing up. They seem to be a lot more open. Their intuition is more open. My own children come to me and they talk about how they're shifting, they're channeling, they're doing things, and
Mm,
they're creating their own world. They're spending more time in their internal world.
mm,
And I think that it's just society as a whole, we are becoming more woke, for lack of a better term. We are awakening. Our spiritual awakening
right.
is it's becoming more apparent, and I'm noticing it in my own kids and their friends. They're just
Yeah,
they're built different.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
find that to be very hopeful because the more we can encourage them to be okay with their feelings regardless of gender, to
right.
be in their own feelings, know when they're feeling a certain type of way, feel that feeling and release it and keep moving, and that it's okay to be in and out of feminine and masculine
Yeah,
energy. That's where our happiness is, and that's what our soul, like, we all have it. No matter what
yeah,
your gender is, we all have energy that's feminine and masculine, and to be able to navigate life in a way where it's okay for my sons to feel, to cry,
yeah,
or to feel joy, or to be happy and express themselves, or to dance and move in a certain way. And
right,
it's also okay for my girls to go play flag football
right,
and play drums and go play guitar or whatever, MMA they want to do. And
right.
then they go do, all their girly things too, but they want to feel empowered and that they have options and control over their body. So I just see that our future right now in these kids, it's very it's enlightening for me to see it. It's hopeful for me, and I feel joyous when I see these kids and all of
Mm,
their friends are doing this. They're more open to
right.
different experiences and their inner world. And we were
Yeah.
not taught that in my generation. We were
Oh,
not taught
oh
to
man.
be in tune
No.
with feelings. I heard all of my male cousins be told, don't cry, don't be a sissy lala, you're acting like a girl. And I would never say that
Wow.
to my sons.
Wow.
And I just see a different parenting that is causing and creating different humans that are going to lead the
Yeah.
world. And our future is going to be very bright because of it.
Oh, I love that. And you just
Yeah.
made me think of something. In another shift is as parents of younger kids now, being able to be open and actually learn. I mean, I know some people might not agree with this, but to learn from the children because they are bringing in some really different energy. And certainly, I think about my childhood and my evolution, um, a lot of things about what girls should and should not be doing, which was very confusing for me when I was 4 or 5 years old because it was who I was. And for some reason it was threatening or it was scary or intimidating. I don't know what, whatever it was. And
Yeah.
they wanted that to be shut down. And I think about, I tried really hard with my kids as best I could with the tools I had at the time to
Mhm.
allow them, male and male, two males and a female, to be who they were, to feel what they felt, but also recognizing they're now, because of their ages, they're actually shifting into that next, and we're looking at the younger ones, and they're, I kind of think my kids were in that generation where they were the they were the trailblazers of, we're not going to do it the same way that you people did it, but they
Yes.
didn't have a lot of support around them because it was so brand new and it was very tumultuous. And sadly, a lot of my kids friends have had, there've been a lot of suicides. There's been a lot of overdoses. There's been a lot, not just around the pandemic, but beyond. But because I think they were coming in feeling so much and into a world that had no idea. Whereas now the younger kids, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more space for them to feel, and I'm really hopeful about that too. But parents need to, these little beings are coming in and they're teaching us something too. I mean, my kids
Absolutely.
have been some of my greatest teachers in a lot of ways. And each time I think I learn something, there's another opportunity to learn.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I love that. We can learn a lot from
We
them.
can, yeah. So I want you to just, other than what I'm going to put down below in the show, is there a way that people can reach out to you if they're curious to learn more?
Oh my gosh, I have so many ways.
Okay.
So I'm going to I'll give you the link for
Yeah.
the hypnosis that will help people get into a alpha brainwave state. Anyone that's curious about learning about passive ways to get cash flowing assets, we have a link. It's www.warriorsofwealth.com. And
Wow.
there's just a curated free training. There's about eight videos that are just a free training list so that people
Awesome.
can go learn the blueprint. And then from a mindset perspective, I don't know if it's okay, but I have my
Yeah.
Unshackled book.
Yes.
So
Share.
you can go onto Amazon and just search for Become Unshackled, and it's an entire process. Like I have an
And it's
annual
a
event.
workbook, has a workbook portion to it, right?
It's a
Yeah.
workbook,
Yeah.
yeah. And so you can go in there and do the work there. And then if you're also just like, hey, I love books, that we have our own multifamily freedom hacking book on Amazon as well. And you can
Awesome.
go in there and get that. So, we've done a lot of things to put the information out there so that you can
Right.
go implement the blueprint. And then if at any time you need help implementing the blueprint, you can just reach out and book a call.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to ask you one more question before we close. I want you, just if there is anything that you feel in this moment that you want to share, any last words with the audience about anything?
What I want to share, I love this question, and it flooded me, is that there are a lot of times where when we're trying something new, fear comes up, and our emotions make us sort of withdraw and go back to what's familiar and what's comfortable. And you know that you're there whenever you ask yourself this question, which is, what must I do that I don't want to do in order to make this happen? And when you ask yourself that question, your subconscious mind's going to put a few things out in front of you and you know what they are. And I would just challenge you to ask yourself that. What goal do you have? And what must you do that you don't want to do in order to achieve it? And then listen to yourself and write down all of those things that you don't want to do. And then I challenge you to go do them. It'll change your life.
Okay. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you being on the show, Jen. Such a wealth of not only information, but really beautiful energy. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me, Laura.